All right, so we are back. Part two. There is a project file called start here that you can use if you X'd away, coming back later, or if you followed along, then you don't need that project file. But we are ready to add materials. This guy is animated. We are ready to add our lighting. We are ready to finish. So first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, hold down Shift, and click these guys. Then I'm going to hit Alt-D, and then hold down Control and bring it down the line again because we can kind of see it restarting a little bit. So I want it to be a little bit more substantial. What I could potentially do, which I'm going to try, can we move it this way? I don't know. I'm trying to see if we can like block the view here. But we could just leave it for now, but you could potentially move this guy to block the view, but I think once we start adding materials, adding everything, it won't be very obvious. So click on the camera icon and we're going to switch over to the Eevee render engine and turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, motion blur. On your screen space reflections, turn off half res and keep everything default. We are going to go into the shading portion. So head to geometry nodes first, and I'm going to go and click on the soccer ball. We're just going to call it the soccer ball. And we need to tell it to have a material. So I'm going to click on this guy and call it, we'll click new, call it ball, and we will apply it to ball. And then we will go here to, we'll go back to the layout, and then I'm just going to open up a brand new window, zoom in on the ball, and then we're going to go here to the shader editor, hit in, and then we're going to go here to the material preview. So let's make this guy metallic, a little bit darker, and then we can go and play with our bump and our roughness. So we're going to make a material that I really, really love to make. So we are going to get our color ramp, and we're going to get in a mix. Well, let's make the first material first. So let's plug him into the roughness and get our Voronoi texture, and then hit Control T on the Voronoi and use the object coordinate, and we will plug color into color ramp. Now we're going to switch over to Chebyshev because that's my favorite pattern here. And then scale it up a little bit and then bring this in. And then on the black one, as we learned in the shading lessons, brings that up a little bit more rough. So now we have this. And then what you can do is Shift A and get a bump node. And then plug in the color into the height. And that's going to give you these really cool lines. In that, but I want to play with the roughness a little bit more, so we'll just move him down here for now, and let's get a new color ramp. We'll just move everything up. How about that? And then we'll move him here. So let's get a new color ramp. So I'll duplicate this one, and we'll get a noise texture, and then we'll move the Voronoi up. Noise texture, plug vector here, and plug the noise texture into the new color ramp, and let's just go ahead and replace this in the roughness. So now we have that. We could bring our detail to 12, bring our roughness up here. Now we have this whole situation going on the white. I think I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. So let's go ahead and combine these two with a mix color. So we get our mix color here, plug it here, and then we'll bring him to the bottom portion and bring him here. And I love this one because you kind of have the base of a regular rough material that you can then slide over to introduce this. So if you press play, you can see you have this really cool look. I'm going to go ahead on the noise texture roughness and make it more rough. There we go. Now we have something that looks really, really nice. But I want to add some glowing elements to this material. So what I can do is we can go back to geometry nodes and see how there's this join geometry node here. What I'd like to do is here in the material preview, I have this. What I actually want to do is move this here and just apply this material to this one. And then I just want a fewer of those broken up ones so you can see them. And then let's go and I'm going to hit Shift D and add this material to those guys as well. But in this case, see this number 3 here? That means this material knows it's on 3 separate objects. So I'm going to go ahead and click the number 3, which will make this object here a duplicate. And then I'm going to call it ball 2 and tell him to be here. And this right here, where it says scale elements and then dual mesh, that is these little broken up ones. And what I'm going to do now is go back to shading, make sure that we're going to add a new slot. Well, ball 2 is already selected, but what we can do is hit plus and get that old ball material as well. But still in the slots, let's go ahead and select ball 2. And what you can do is play with emission. So we're going to go ahead here on the emission, and we're going to give it a strength of like 10, give it the blue that we're going to apply to everything, and then we're going to get in a color ramp, which means we really need to put the blue here. So I'm going to hover here, hit Control C, click him, hit Control V, plug this into color, and we'll get my favorite node for this type of thing, a layer weight, and we'll use facing. And so now what's going to happen is you can see how the layer weight works. It does this really cool thing on the edge of things. So I'm going to bring in my color ramp to kind of exaggerate it, just so he shows up on the edge, and then you can bring that strength up. So now we have this really cool looking ball. Now I'm noticing that we need to change our color space. So I'm going to click on the camera icon, color management, AGX to filmic, and then none to high contrast. And then we can bring that brightness down if we want. But so far, our soccer ball is shaded and he looks really cool. Let's go ahead and add materials to the rest of this scene. So we need to go to geometry nodes. Let's go ahead and select the very first original instance so we can see all of the nodes here in the geometry nodes editor. And we have this join geometry, which tells us this is where we need to apply our materials. So I need to remember what is what. So let's see. This looks like it is the particles. So I'm going to click new, name this the particle material, and we're just going to switch it over to emission now. And we can actually go back to material preview. And I'm going to get in a set material node and grab the particle. It looks like, yep, looks like that's correct. And let's see. Oh, my color was still pasted. So good. We can bring that color there. And then let's see. What's the rest of these? They're all just going to have the same material. So we're going to Shift A, get another set material node, and we're going to hit the plus icon over here and call it base. So just be the base material that we use. Select base, and then Shift D and Shift D. And then you can go ahead and just make it metallic. And then nice and dark, like so. And then maybe make it more rough. We don't know what we want yet. We never know what we want. All right, so now we're here, and then on the runway, we'll go back to the frame. This runway can also have, we'll actually put the ball material on the runway. And then in this case, I know these guys aren't beveled, and that's really just out of convenience. And since there'll be motion blur, it won't be super obvious, but you can go ahead and replace the objects if you'd like. I'm going to leave it because I found it to not really make it look worse or better. We're going to add a bevel to this, though, because it's going to be very obvious that it's not beveled. Right-click and shade smooth. And so now we have this guy running through. Everything else has a material. And now we can start with our lighting. So let's go click on here, which is going to be the main view. We can bring our world brightness to black. All right, so we need to start adding, I'm going to hit the period key and maybe click on this guy so we can see him. You can hit the period key and it'll zero out the view on something. So let's go ahead and add some lights. So first I want to add a light right up in here. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and we're going to go ahead and get a light and a point light. And then we're going to bring him over. And then I'm going to hit G and just kind of bring him up in here somewhere. And he'll be the establishing light that we can then kind of add volume and make it look cool. So we'll give it a power of like 1,000 for now, and then make it blue. Give it, try to get similar blue. That kind of nailed it right there. So we'll have that there. And then what we can do now is add in our volume. So click on the world volume. We can go here to principled volume. And there we go. Something like this, just this nice ambiance. Okay, and then maybe we can, let's click on the point light and bring him, I'll bring him back a little bit. I don't want to see him in the camera view. And then I'm going to hit Shift D and bring one above as a top light. So now we have him up here. And then I want to do one more. I'm hit Shift D and bring him, whoop, he's not clicked, is he? Hit Shift D and then bring him down here to have some lighting, but he will be the darkest one. So I'm going to move him up a little bit. And then maybe he needs to be like 200 on the brightness. And then, I don't know, I think, how do we feel? Well, we need to go back. Well, let's go ahead and parent these. So I'm going to click on these guys, hold down Shift, and then hold down Alt to click on the camera, Control P, object. So now these lights are going to follow. Do I like how much this is being lit? No, I don't. I think that the point light, so to access them, they're going to be within the camera. This point light might need to come back a little bit to, there we go. I want to make sure that there is enough light on the sphere to actually like enjoy actually what we're getting here. And yeah, something like that. Well, I'm going to click on him and then click on the ball number 2. And then I'm going to scroll down here in the, well, I want to change the color. I can't. We'll do that later. So now we have this. Maybe my volume is a bit too thick. Something like this probably looks pretty good. So what I want to do is, these particles are huge, right? I want them to be tiny. I want them to be more of an ambient type of thing. So we'll click on, I'm going to scroll out, click on this instance here, and then go to this guy and bring those particles much, much smaller. Now what I want to do is add in some side walls here to add this really cool like light streak looking effect, you know, that I had come up with while I was designing this. So we can just go ahead and hit Shift A and get in a plane. I'm gonna bring it up here, and then I'm gonna hit R, Y, actually no, I guess R, X, 90, okay? And then we can do S, X, 10. There we go. He's going to be the length of this whole thing. And then we can hit Alt D this time because we're going to be applying the same material to both. And then maybe we can go to the scale tool and scale him up a little bit. Same thing for this guy. Just like that. Control A, apply scale. Apply scale on both of those guys. Okay, cool. And let's go ahead and design that material, and then we're going to have a really cool thing here. So we'll go here to the shading tab, bring it over. We'll go to the official render view now that we're here, and then I can click new. I'm going to hit period to reveal this guy, and then I'm actually just going to go ahead and get in a mix node, mix shader specifically. We'll get an emission. And we will get, of course, we need to enable transparency. So you click on the material button here, and then click on alpha blend, and we need to get in transparent BSDF and plug that here. So we could see, is it working? Yes, it works. Okay. We can go ahead and make this emission a nice vibrant orangey yellow color. That's what we're going to go with. Let's get that color ramp to actually say, hey, let's distribute this emission in a really cool way with a noise texture. And then you can hit Control T and use the object coordinate here, and then plug this here. All right. So now we have this. You can crunch in the white portion in this case, bring up that strength. We can, here in the mapping is where we're going to make it look really stretched out. And then you can bring up that, let's see now, I brought down my detail, I think in this case. And then you can scale it up, something like this. And then maybe make it more of like a golden color. There we go. Ooh, that looks nice. And then you can bring that color amp in some more. Scale it out some more as well. Maybe bring the color ramp back a little bit. And then you can switch this over to 4D. And that's where we're going to animate this to look like that as we're going through. So we can go ahead and animate that. This is the only other bit of animation we're going to need to do. So we can do that classic W animation. So Shift D, bring this here. We're going to loop the W. So we're going to need a mix color node, and we'll plug the factor here. And then let's go ahead and get a timeline. Once our material loads, bring it back here, and then let's get that timeline. Cool. Now we can see all 250 frames. So bring your factor to the left, and then I'm going to bring my hover over here, go to frame 0, W hit I, factor hit I, go to the very end. I'm going to do maybe 3, and then bring this guy also hit I. Staying at 250, we're going to go hit the W and then go back, go to frame 0 and type in -3. I already know that's pretty slow. You can see that it's pretty slow. So instead of -3, we'll do 6, -6. Hit I, go to the very end on this guy and type in 6 just to speed it up. That looks good. Now we just need to go ahead and add these to the whole scene. So I'm going to click on this plane, hold down Shift, click on this plane, and hit M and click on Loop, and that duplicated it down the line. So now we can view this animation. Looks awesome. Looks really cool. I'm going to go ahead, and I think in my original animation, I actually went and I'm going to hit period to zero in on this material here. I took this guy and I hit Alt-D again, and I dragged it over here, and I did the same thing, Alt-D, dragged it over to really get this just crazy looking effect. And then I went and let's see, we'll go back to layout here. I want to have my outliner a little bit bigger. Here, what point light is this? So I want him to be a lot brighter. So we'll do like 3000. That might be too much. Actually, he might just need to be moved. So I might need to move him a little farther this way and then this way. I don't know. The lighting is the most annoying part of this scene. So maybe he does need to be a little brighter. What I'm struggling with is to get this guy to feel a little bit more lit up. So maybe bring the point light behind. And then maybe bring it 2000. Ah, there we go. That looks nicer. That looks a good bit nicer. And then I want to make this also that kind of golden material, golden color. So we'll go back to shading. I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to go hover over here and copy that. And I'm going to click on the ball. And then let's see. Yep, slot 2. So click here and paste it. And then bring that brightness down a little bit. Actually, maybe just bring that blend down. Maybe bring the blend back up. Something like that. There we go. And then I am going to take my camera and then zoom in on my ball. And then we can bring it down a little bit if we want. Maybe zoom back out, something like this. And then the last thing to tie this all together, to finish this whole thing off, is with a depth of field. So click on the camera, click on the green icon, and we'll go to depth of field. Bring that down. Let's see. Make sure the closest thing is in focus, and then you can bring that f-stop back up. So the f-stop is going to make your bokeh and your blur much more dramatic. There we go. And then maybe possibly back on the material. We'll click on the shading tab. Possibly make it much brighter. And then go to slot 1 as well and make this brighter, just so we can really see the ball. I want him to be the focal point. Nice. We're here. We did it. We recreated that animation. It is of course, a seamless loop. You created this whole huge scene right here in Blender that has this ball moving down the line. Looks awesome. He's rolling. I love this scene. I love this project. Of course, there's just constant tweaks. I'm going to go ahead and click this instance here, go back to geometry nodes, and I want to add more particles. So let's see, density, bring up the density a little bit. There we go. Now we have more particles flying. It is going to make your viewport speed a little slower because it is going to be high geometry, but I just really love the way the particles look. But that is it. That's the whole scene. That's the whole whatever. It looks great. You can turn on and off your bloom. You know, maybe bloom is too much. Bring the intensity down a little bit. Who knows? All of this is completely up to you. But with that being said, that is this whole lesson. Lots of things to use here, but I think the takeaway is like, hey, this lesson is a really good way to get you comfortable with bigger scenes that are really just using geometry nodes with all the objects and tracking and parenting, and all of this is one big scene, and I think there's a lot to take away from this one. But with that being said, that's the end of this lesson. I hope you got something from it, and onward.